What's up guys, I'm Chris Doughty, aka Doubtinator. Welcome back to the channel. Oh, at the same time, that's amazing. But it's put me second overall. In this video, I'm going to try and do some myth busting. I've tried many... I'm now first. I don't get that. Same time, different order. That's very strange. Anyway, let's get straight into this one. I'm going to try and do some more testing with tyre temperatures in Gran Turismo 7 and do they have an effect? I've done some back-to-back testing before and I couldn't find a difference. However, during Daily Race C, running 10 laps consecutively on the same set of tyres, specifically with this Lamborghini Huracan, and it just really started to become loose. So I'm going to run through this race. Trying to wrestle with this Lamborghini in Daily Race C was really difficult, and that the leader there is just it's going to be a hard one to catch, that is, because that guy's fast. He's using the Porsche. The Porsche is dominant, especially in this fuel-saving race. With regard to outright lap pace in qualifying, I was able to just fractionally beat my lap record using the Lamborghini, slightly faster than the Porsche, but it's very hard to drive, and it gets even harder as the race goes on. So on screen right now, guys, you can see in the top right of your screen is the TV camera replay. You can see the outside of the car to see how it's behaving. In the left hand side of your screen is the onboard of me. There's the virtual driver of myself, and you can see all of the controller and steering inputs I'm giving the car to keep this car on the track. In the very bottom left are the tyre temperatures. Now during this video they may grey out, they may do some really weird stuff, but you keep an eye on the numbers, because the device I'm using to capture the tyre temperatures, it's a really old Android device, and honestly it's on its last legs. I can barely get the data out of it and into a video. It's incredibly tough, but you'll see how this goes through the race. The numbers are what you need to keep an eye out for. I will also continue to test with wet weather and how wet weather affects tyre temperatures. Honestly, right now the weather's just so random, which is fantastic for the game, but it makes it incredibly difficult to create any kind of tangible content. Every lap's completely different, but I'm continuing to work on that one, so stick with me. Make sure you're subscribed. Only less than 19% of people watching these videos are subscribed. If we can change that number to the positive, that would be fantastic. It would really mean a lot. Helps the channel to grow and helps people get back on board with how good GT7 can be. Because honestly guys, the more I look into things, the more I realise that GT7 is actually a fantastic racing simulation. It simulates racing. It may not simulate the exact physics of every race car to the nth degree, but honestly no simulation is good. We get a bit of a snap of oversteer there, hitting the curb, and this is going to turn into a battle for third place now, because the leader has checked out and now it's all down to me to try and hang on to this second place. The guy in third place right now, the French driver, I've had a fantastic race with him previously. I was using the Porsche, is a bit fairer on myself, but a huge amount of respect to that French driver, because there's so many instances where he could have thrown it down the inside or made a bit of contact by mistake and ruined both of our races. But huge respect to that French driver. And he is also under pressure from the driver behind, so he's in a bit of a sandwich. We're the blocker in all of this, and we can see through many of these corners in this Lamborghini Huracan. It just wants to slide, it wants to over rotate on corner entry, and we are really starting to heat up those rear tyres. After less than 2 laps, we're already up to 83 degrees on that left rear tyre. Now, a question to all of you. I want you to observe the driving behaviour, the way the car drives, the way the car slides, the steering inputs, and also the tyre temperatures. And I want you to let me know in the comments below, at what point do you think the tyres go off? What point do you think the tyres overheat? And the interesting thing is, it is just down to tyre temperature, because tyre wear in this race is only at ×1. We are not going to see any red bars on those tyres at all. So we are really checking out this tyre temperature in isolation. I was a little bit deep on the brakes there into turn 1. And yeah, another thing to point out, I'm running a military spec green car, special edition version for this. Make sure you're subscribed. There's something very interesting in the future. Kind of touched on it a little bit before with Nerf guns, but it's quite interesting. I'll get to that a little bit later in the month, or maybe in a couple of months time. But right now we're really starting to get to terms with this car, this Lamborghini Huracan, in race conditions. I was quick with it in time trial, and I feel quite quick with it in the race, although I am suffering a bit with fuel. I am having to short shift quite aggressively to make sure we make the distance on fuel. There's no way you can do a stop in this race. The Porsche is incredibly good on fuel. And the Porsche is also incredibly stable on the brakes, on corner exit, on throttle, all of that good stuff. But the Lamborghini, it just is very, very difficult to drive. You're always on the edge of a slide, especially through this corner here, down to 4th gear, trying to flow through nicely. And we see the display of the tyres, it's just greyed out a little bit there. I actually had an error message on screen on my Android tablet, but it still recorded the footage, just a little bit greyed out. So sorry about that. We think we're going to need to invest in a better Android device to really capture these tyre temperatures in the future. But if you've been paying attention to the onboard footage with the way that the car's driving, with the steering inputs I'm having to give the car, it's mostly been pretty normal. I'm steering right for the right-handers, steering left for the left-handers, just a little bit of fine adjustments for all of the other corners. So we set our best lap of the race so far in that one, 147, which is way off what I can do in the Porsche. I'm down to the 146, is almost average in the Porsche. So the fuel saving is really hurting us in this one. We are up to lap number 4 now, so we're starting the 4th lap of the race, and the tyre temperatures are getting higher. 89 degrees for the left rear tyre, and through every single corner, when we lean on that a little bit more, it's just going to creep and creep up. And as you can see, the onboard footage, the hands of the driver, we're just flowing through corners quite nicely. We're not really having to catch the car, we're not really having to wrestle the car or catch an over rotation on corner entry. The car feels great. It's difficult to drive, as the Lamborghini always is, even in time trial, but the car doesn't feel imbalanced. The over rotation is manageable. In fact, sometimes it can be quite beneficial through some of the sweeping corners to play with the throttle and just get the car to rotate and keep a tighter line. And interestingly as well, I found the exact same problem with the Ferrari 458 as well. I did another daily race C with the Ferrari, and I could just barely finish the race. The settings I'm using for the GT7 Sim dashboard app, it's one of the pre-made settings. I think it's like a user-created setting. When you search for GT7 dashboards, it is the very first one on the list. I'm just using the pre-made one. All of the settings I'm using with regard to the colours for the tyres and the temperatures to relate to those, they're all default from the app. I've not looked into any more detail than that. But yeah, let's just work together to see how we think these colour codings actually work. At what point do we think the tyres go off? Because spoiler alert guys, they do go off, and it's not tyre wear related. I don't think it's fuel related, and it has to be tyre temperatures. We'll see a little bit later on, probably lap 6 onwards, we're going to start to really just see the car start to move around. Just the first snap of oversteer on over rotation there, you had to catch that one on the corner exit there. Start to look in more detail on the onboard view and see how much we're having to work the steering wheel to keep the car aligned. Left rear tyre temperatures up to 93 degrees now, flowing through this sequence of corners, and we're on the curb. We're going to get a snap of oversteer, but I think that's curb related. Let's not put that down to tyre temperatures just yet, because I had the same problem earlier on in the race. It was on the curb, getting the car rotated, maybe it unloads one of the wheels. But let's just keep an eye on the driver inputs, the steering wheel inputs. But we have managed to make a small gap to the driver in third place. So the car was feeling pretty good, and we're on for a personal best lap time. 93 degrees, 90 on the other rear tyre. Slight wobble on corner exit there, but that could just be coming out the corner in second gear. A little bit of a bump in the middle of that corner can sometimes upset the car, but through here you can see I'm having to correct that. I'm having to opposite lock the car through that sweeping corner. Super dangerous corner, high speed and real high risk. If you go off there, you are in the barrier. No chance to correct that one. Up to 95 degrees on the left rear tyre now. Orange is the colour the Sim dashboard app has decided to colour the tyre. So are we into the window of danger? And you can see the car's moving around. Look at the steering inputs. Again, we're just fighting with the car. This will be interesting into a bit of a swaz there. You don't really expect that. I mean, if you ride the curb, you can slide a little bit. Let's see how it works into turn 1. Quick check on the fuel. I'm good for fuel. Fastest lap of the race for me so far. On the brakes now, into this corner, it will be quite difficult to keep hold. Let's just look at the steering inputs here. We're going to flow in quite nicely, and we're going to... Oh, massive moment there on the corner exit. 96 degree rear tyre temperature. So is that the window of operation? Am I beyond the rear tyre temperature operation? Once again, keep an eye on the driver inputs. Climbing the curbs there a bit. That's on me, that is unsettling the car. But let's just look for a normal corner and see how this one works. Now, probably the right-hand corners will probably be a bit more problematic than the left-hand corners, being the left-hand tyre is the one that's hot. But let's just see how this one plays out. It'll come through here quite nicely. It'd be interesting to see the lap time actually, or the delta. Third place is definitely catching me up. On the brakes now, we are down on our personal best, so that's a little bit telling. This corner ahead could be the real challenge. It's such a dangerous corner. Let's see if we can get around here without a massive moment. Fourth gear, trying to flow through quite nicely, and we do keep under control. That's quite nicely done. Onto the curb, massive moment there. That's a big catch of oversteer there. Okay, it feels to me at this point where the tyres are dead. The rear tyres just aren't working. I'm really fighting the car. 98-degree rear tyre temperature on that left rear. 94 on the right rear, so I think we've got a big work on our hands now, and we've still got 4 laps to go. Look at the amount of swaz we're getting through here. A lot of crossing up, a lot of catching the car required, and 100-degree rear tyre temperature. And I think the important thing is it's not peak tyre temperature, it's a real constant tyre temperature. It doesn't cool down, it doesn't drop down after a big spike of tyre temperature. We've managed to get 100 degrees of just real core tyre temperature here. And yeah, just a little bit of twitch through corner exit there. So the problem also becomes, once the tyre loses grip, you start to slide more. That generates more tyre temperature. That makes the car slide more, and that generates even more tyre temperature. And once you get into this cycle, you cannot get the tyres down again. The tyres, once they've got a core amount of temperature in them, you just can't cool the tyres off, no matter how much you try and just ease off, just try and drive a bit more within the car's capabilities. If we're going to slide almost all the time here, no matter how you drive, unless you're going to be like 1 or 2 or maybe even 5 seconds a lap off the pace, you're not going to get any tyre temperatures down. It's almost impossible. As the Porsche driver's going to go to the inside, we're going to get a switch back here. A bit of a futile battle, this one, because I can't see how I'm going to make it to the end of the race. Honestly, I think a crash is imminent. Let me know in the comments below if you think I can get to the end of this race. Look at the amount of oversteer through that sweeping corner, and the Porsche driver isn't being incredible. Once again, we're wrestling with the car. Huge shout out to the Porsche driver, showing me the respect of just really giving me the space I need. Look at this, we are so wide, and honestly the tyres have just fallen off a cliff. 102 degrees, and I feel like the car is impossible to drive. I've got 3 laps remaining. I don't think I'm going to get to the end of the race. Can I get a podium out of this one? I've got 3 seconds to the guy in 4th place. I'm not sure I'm going to do this one. This is going to be an epic battle. So that lap was 2.3 seconds off the pace, and it's only going to get worse. And I've got fuel problems as well. I need to be continuing to short shift. How's this one going to work out into turn 1? And look at the onboard footage. We almost lose it once again. These rear tyres are absolutely dead. The fronts at them, well, the biggest problem, maybe not just the tyre temperature, is the temperature difference between rear tyres and front tyres. The front tyres are still within the perfect operating window, but the rear tyres are overheated. They're dead. They're like chewing gum, and just the car is moving all around. It's such a hard beast to drive. I mean, the Lamborghini itself is quite hard to drive, but when the rear tyres are this badly overheated, and quite clearly tyre heat is having an effect on the handling. I can't prove it, I can't give you a benchmark. It's kind of based on a feeling, but surely from this footage you can see, and certainly showing the onboard steering angles and stuff, for sure the car is different. The only thing that's different is tyre temperatures. I've driven this Lamborghini on low fuel, and it drives perfectly fine. In fact, in qualifying, the car is run empty. But look at this, I really cannot, I just can't keep the car in a straight line. It's such a wrestle. Skipping forward to the start of lap number 9 into turn 1, I'm just going to get a massive swaz on here once again, almost losing the car completely, and I'm under massive attack from the drivers behind me. Quite frankly, there is nothing I can do to combat these. They've got 2 Porsches swarming all over me. Dominant cars for this race, but yeah, we just run wide there, trying to sweep through these corners here, trying to keep on to, but look at the amount of opposite lock I'm having to put into the car. I'm really having to drive the car twice as good as everybody else just to barely get around the track. And yeah, look at the gap he's pulling on me. I've got no drive out the corners. Daren't steer the car, daren't accelerate. Look at this, I'm just opposite lock the car through the easiest corner on the track, skipping forwards, and all this ends up in me just making a mistake. We're trying to overcorrect now, smashing into the barrier, and I've gone from being someone who's likely to finish second in this race, potentially could have won the race based on a qualifying pace, to someone that's just smashing into barriers, getting a 1.5 second penalty, and yeah, nothing. But as it's going to turn out, the guy in front is going to get a 1.5 second penalty. I'm going to just about hold on to the car to bring it home in fifth, to promote him to fourth place. No. Let me know what you think of that in the comments below. It is not a scientific test, but I don't think you can argue with the fact that tyre temperatures with regard to tyre heat and overheating the tyres to lose grip is a thing. One thing I'm yet to confirm is the feeling of cold tyres. I'm not really feeling that at the moment, but tyres overheating for sure is a thing. And this is more specific to mid-engine rear-wheel drive cars, which really overheat the rear tyres. On the more normal cars where we have even tyre temperatures, the problem doesn't seem to be apparent. The rear tyre temperatures don't spike.